Aren't we?
Our friends in the press, in the Fourth Estate, are we ready to go? Wonderful, thank you. Good morning and welcome to everybody who's here this morning. Before we get started on the announcement and signing of this memorandum, I want to thank the Oakland Housing Authority Executive Director, John Gressley, for his leadership. I want to thank the Oakland Housing Authority Chair of the Board, my former colleague, Moses Main. I want to thank a fine neighborhood advocate who has become a Oakland Housing Authority Commissioner, Greg Hartwig. And last, and by no means least, my colleague and friend, City Council member Patricia Kernahan. We've made a lot of progress over the last 2 years since the city filed a public nuisance action against the Oakland Housing Authority. And I want to be clear, although we did file a lawsuit, we have since come to the table together with our colleagues at OHA and worked well together to reach what all of us believe is a good settlement for the thousands of families who live in public housing in Oakland. During this process, the properties that were listed in our lawsuit have, without question, improved dramatically. I want to say that whereas in the past my office received many complaints, my office has not received a single complaint about an Oakland Housing Authority property for the past 6 months. I have never looked at a settlement, nor this one. I've never looked at a settlement as the last word that fixes all problems in a relationship for all time. However, substantive framework to remedy complaints as they happen, and it represents a much more cooperative and a much more transparent approach to managing public housing in our city. For example, the settlement includes clear policies for reporting and tracking complaints. As importantly, clearer lines of communication between the city and the Oakland Housing Authority on everything from the maintenance of the streets, which is the city's responsibility, to garbage services, which is also monitored by the city, to surveillance of drug hotspots. Some of the highlights of this settlement include Oakland Housing Authority administrators are assigned to monitor all scattered site housing in the city. As OHA develops new housing, buildings with more than 16 units will have responsible persons on site to be representatives of Oakland Housing Authority at that site. All garbage and graffiti problems will be abated within 2 business days of receiving a complaint. Tenants and other interested parties are informed about the status of complaints. We are coordinating efforts between the Oakland Housing Authority and the Oakland Police Department, including surveillance of crime hotspots. We've also formed a working group which will include representatives of both the Housing Authority and the city, which will meet on a regular basis to identify problems as they arise and to coordinate services. All tenants in Oakland deserve humane housing, regardless of their income. Now, we have had our differences over the years, but this is a great day and a great start, and I am looking forward to working with the OHA to ensure, as is their desire, that all tenants and families in this city have livable housing. So with that, I have a couple of people who I want to bring to the podium who will have comments to make before we sign our document. And the first is the Executive Director of the Oakland Housing Authority, John Gressley. I want to say that John approached me at a lunch about maybe 9 months ago, something like that, and said, look, is there some way before we all spend fortunes on lawyers, is there some way we can work this out? And I really appreciate that you reached out. I think it was the right thing to do, and it's much better to have this resolution than to be wasting money on a lawsuit. So with that, let me bring to the podium the Executive Director, John Gressley.
Thanks, John. Thank you, John. I can only echo John's remarks, but I do have a couple things to say in addition. One is, often you know you've got the right agreement because nobody's happy with it. This is just the opposite. This is a time when we have an agreement that everybody's happy with, and I think it is the right agreement. There really never has been a dispute about our goals. From our perspective, this really has been an issue of resources, and fortunately for us, we're one of only the top 1% of the housing authorities in the country that's been designated a moving to work housing authority. We received this designation in 2004, and since that time, we've been able to restructure the housing authority, realign how our staffing is organized, and also begin to redirect some of our financial resources with flexibility we did not have prior to receiving this designation. And as a result, we've been able to treat properties like this and make considerable improvements to scattered sites throughout the city. We have about $25 million worth of deferred maintenance and other improvements going on at our scattered sites. And with the kinds of flexibility we've gained as a moving to work housing authority, we've been able to address many of the issues that we shared with the city prior to our designation. And so we're very pleased to be in a position where we can satisfy both our and the city's desires around goals for public housing. I'd like to call upon one of our commissioners. Greg Hartwig is actually a neighbor of this site. He's a neighborhood activist and became a member of the Board of Commissioners, I think about 2 years ago. Right. And Greg Hartwig lives around the corner, and I'd like for him to make some remarks.
Yes, well, I literally do live around the corner. I live about 2 blocks from here. So as you might imagine, the quality of management of OHA is extremely important to me. We're surrounded by quite a few OHA sites. And I became a member of the board as a result of my community activities. I was a member of an organization that was formed specifically to try to bring OHA to the table to address a lot of the problems that we had seen in the community. And since I've been on the board, I am really happy to say that it has been a very pleasurable experience, because I felt that everyone has worked together as a very effective team. And you really see the results all around you. And it's not just in terms of how good the buildings look, but it's also just the overall management of the sites. I really believe that everything has been moving in a positive direction. And so thanks to OHA and our council members and city attorney and everyone that has been involved in this, because this is, if there's ever truly a group effort, I think that this certainly qualifies as that. Thank you.
Thank you, Greg. I would just like to point out that one of the key things we've been able to do is this strategy of addressing our properties, repairing, taking care of repairs that have been deferred for years because of underfunding by the federal government. This property we did not have to vacate in order to make the improvements. This property's received new windows, a new roof, it's been painted, it's had new landscaping, it has a new garbage collection system. And all of these improvements were made without disrupting the tenants' lives and without doing a gut rehab, which would have required the hiring of an architect, a much more expensive process. As a contrast, I point to the property across the street, which we're equally proud of. It's another public housing site, but it was rehabbed in a gut rehab fashion, much more expensive, much more extensive. All of the tenants had to be moved out. And we've been able to do many more properties using this approach than that more expensive approach, and that's a result of the flexibility that we have as an MTW. So I'd invite you to take a look at that property as well, but I'd like to call upon the chairman of the Board of Commissioners, who's provided great leadership to the Housing Authority, Moses Maine.
Well, I'm going to say something a little different. Let's be perfectly clear. Nobody's happy with a lawsuit, and we were not ecstatic when we got hit with the lawsuit. But I want to say that because of the lawsuit, some positive things really came out of it, and I wanted to echo that sentiment. John mentioned it a little bit earlier, but I wanted to say that we found that we developed a better working relationship with the mayor's office. We found that we've developed a better working relationship with the city council and with the city attorney's office because of this lawsuit. And so I need to also say thanks for the lawsuit because of what it did, but hopefully we don't have this problem in the future. As a commission, we have worked feverishly to come to the position where we can make an impact on what's happening with our public housing. Because of the funding resources we received from HUD, which has been diminished significantly, we haven't been able to keep up with the maintenance. Fortunately for us, we had the opportunity to become an MTW, or Moving to Work program with HUD, and that allowed us the opportunity to blend our funds and use some of the funds to fix up our public housing. And that's the reason why we were able to do what we've done in such a short period of time. This has been in the works. Unfortunately, we did not communicate that with everybody else, and now that we've had a chance to, we all see the results of what's going on, and we have a better working relationship with most people, especially the community that we serve. Thank you very much.
I'd now like to bring to the podium one of the council members who was most active in moving this process along, and that's Councilmember Patricia Kernahan.
Well, I think the foregoing speakers have really described the particulars of this very wonderful result. I just want to say a little bit about how important it is to the residents of the many neighborhoods of Oakland where the Oakland Housing Authority scattered sites were. 3 years ago, one of the prime complaints that came to my office and the office of several other council members were complaints about the activities and condition of Oakland Housing Authority scattered sites. It was a major problem. Every neighborhood crime prevention council in the Flatlands was dealing with it. And so finally, our city attorney decided to sort of bring some extra pressure by filing a lawsuit. But I want to thank everybody involved. Even prior to the lawsuit, we were having conversations with OHA Director John Gressley, who I know wanted to solve this problem. And the financial challenges were huge to OHA. They don't have enough resources to fulfill the public mandate that they have to provide housing. And I want to thank John and the members of the board and especially Greg Hartwig, my constituent, who started as a neighborhood activist and ended up being on the OHA board and a huge asset for coming at this problem with some really creative, informed thinking and getting this MTW designation from HUD that allows them to solve the problems that they've had for so long. And I also want to thank the staff at OHA who now are really working on management of these facilities, not only the facility across the street and behind us, but I see many others in my district are looking so much better. I'm not getting the complaints anymore. And so I really want to thank City Attorney John Russo for sort of getting that sort of jab in the ribs that really got everybody very, very serious about formalizing mechanisms to make sure that these facilities are well managed. And again, thanking OHA for coming up with this very creative financing mechanism that allows them to actually pay for these improvements. So this is an example of things working in Oakland. Problems can be solved when people come together, recognize what the objective is, and really get serious about management. And so I want to thank you all. It's made my life a lot easier and the lives of many of my constituents much more pleasant.
Thank you. Okay, so before we take questions, we're going to sit at the table and we're going to sign this settlement, and then we'll be happy to take questions. This won't take more than a minute. Is it this one?
I don't have to sign.
Is this one we're signing? Moses, Greg, why don't you get the back here? That's it? That's the only one? Okay, beautiful. We'll send you a copy.
It's in the mail. My attorney can take a look at that.
I think he did.
No, I looked over it.
Here you go. Yeah, I changed it. I'm basically, any problems we have, I just made a couple little changes. Any problems we have are your personal responsibility.
You have a pen?
I have a pen. After you.
All right.
Good thing.
This is Oakland going the right way.
What is today?
Today's the 10th. Great.
All right, sir.
Thank you very, very much. Appreciate it.
Hold it. You're gonna do that again?
There you go.
Come on, Judy.
Come on, camera.
Great.
Yay.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. All right. Sorry for the delay. Ladies and gentlemen of the press, any questions we can answer?
I actually have one for John.
Sure.
Yeah, you mentioned that you had funding problems with the funding from the federal government. Do you anticipate that changing under the oncoming Obama administration?
Well, we have an immediate opportunity right now, actually, because the federal government is looking at a stimulus package. And so there are many of us in the industry who have been working to try to make sure that public housing gets included in that stimulus package. So, yes, I think so, but I think it may be, hopefully, more than short-lived, but it may be short-lived with the stimulus package. Congress is going to have a hard road ahead to fund public housing because they're going to be paying for Iraq and a lot of other things for many years. We're hoping for improvements. We're currently being funded in public housing operations at 82% of our eligibility. That's a problem. It needs to come up. Fortunately, the Section 8 funding is fully funded. The capital fund is just a fraction of what it needs to be. And the stimulus package may include capital funds that will permit housing authorities to make many more physical improvements. And if we receive some of those, we can put that money to work and continue to do the improvements.
The commissioners, you have a thought on that, or?
No, he said it succinctly.
Okay, excellent, yeah.